Hey guys, today we're in the book of First Chronicles chapter 9. We're almost through all of the genealogies. You've almost made it. But this one starts to turn the page. And we start today in chapter 9 with the genealogies of the returned exile. These are the genealogy of the people who went to Babylon and now have left Babylon and decided by their own actions that they would return back to Jerusalem, to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, as well as to rebuild the temple. It's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of people returned. A lot of this is covered again in Ezra and in Nehemiah. But there's a couple things I want to point out. First thing, in verse 1, it says that all of Israel was recorded in genealogies, and these are written in the book of Kings of Israel. This is a separate book than what we know as 1st and 2nd Kings in our Bible. This would have been a book outside of the Bible, just saying that Israel kept a history book of all of their kings so that they could keep all of these genealogies straight, right? And so that's what the chronicler is writing. And we also see, it says, and Judah was taken into exile into Babylon because of their breach of faith, right? So here, once again, the chronicler knows or have seen the hand of God that allowed Judah to be taken to Babylon, to be exiled for 70 years because of what? Not because God was not powerful, not because he was not in control. It was simply because that Judah was unfaithful. Right? So it was on the fault of Judah, not on the fault of God. But God controlled, his hand of sovereignty, moved everything around, as we've already seen in some places in Chronicles as he's writing this. And now it says in verse 2, now the first to dwell again in their possession in their cities. In between verse 1 and verse 2, 70 years of history is gone, okay? He says, Judah went into Babylon, and it says, and now they've returned. So 70 years has gone. The chronicler doesn't necessarily care as much of what happened in Babylon. The point of him writing is to remind the remnant coming back from exile that they are chosen by God. God has a plan for them. There's still hope. A new king is coming, right? That's the whole point. So he doesn't kind of dwell on the past. He's all about the future. And so here, what happens? He says the first to dwell in their possession. Basically what it means is the first ones to come back to the promised land are who? It's the priest, the Levites, and the temple servants. Right, we would say the priests are from the descendants of Aaron, right? Yes, they are of Levites, but they are special people who are descended from Aaron, who have the authority to be priests. Then we have the Levites. These are the tribe of Levites. Many of them worked in the temple, but like we said yesterday, not every Levite was a priest, but every priest was a Levite. And then we see temple servants. Now you got to put on your hat and kind of think of in the past, who are the temple servants? Well, we've learned through some of the Judges, we've learned through some of the other books that we've read that through history, people like Gideon, Joshua, some of the other judges, as they have taken and defeated some of these Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites, as they've kind of defeated these other nations in the promised land in Canaan, they have brought them in to be slaves, right? Remember, they're called woodworkers, water gatherers. Some have been to work in the temple. And so these are this. So some of the people that returned were slaves of Israel, right, who still got carted away to Babylon. Babylon didn't care who they were. They just wanted them out of there. And so now some of them came back. And so the first kind of group are the priests, are the Levites, and are temple workers. Why? Because the first thing that they were doing when they returned was not to build their house, was not to build Jerusalem. No, it was to rebuild the temple, right? They needed the temple. Think of this, 70 years, no sacrifices have been made. For 70 years, there's been no atonement for sin. For 70 years, God has not spoken to the priests, and the priests have not spoken to the people because that's been non-existent. Now, God has spoken to prophets, and prophets have spoken to people, Daniel, Jeremiah, but as a whole, the nation, there has not been. So they're coming back. They have learned their lesson they say they've learned their lesson in exile, and they're coming back to rebuild the temple. So we get a genealogy of people who are returning from Babylon and coming back to Israel. And a lot of these are attached with numbers. We can see what size of crowd that Israel is coming back. Then we kind of get a breakdown, right? Verse 10 starts of the priest, and we get all the name of the priest, the genealogies of the priest. Verse 14 is the Levites. We get the genealogy of the Levites. And then verse 17, we get the gatekeepers or the servants. And we get a large number of people in this, as well as musicians and other people that are there. And so this just gives us, along with Nehemiah, a good group of people that we say who came back, right? After Babylon got defeated by Persia, Persia said, you guys can go anywhere you want. A small group of people came back to Jerusalem to start to rebuild the temple. And so this is history of saying, where in the past, the chronicler has said, here's who we were, right? Now the chronicler is saying, here's who we are. And now we will move forward with the rest of Chronicles of saying, this is who we will be, right? And this, we start to look towards the future. We start to look towards this new David that is coming, a new hope that is on the verge of what they are honestly hoping for. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. We're kind of through the genealogy, so it's now we're kind of into the good stuff. But stay strong. You guys have got it. We'll see you tomorrow on chapter 10. God bless.